Bye-bye.
So, Jerry,
okay. Yeah.
we're glad to have you here. We obviously have less time than before, but I want to show you, I put your slides up.
Okay.
And when I did that, I didn't know what order you wanted them in, so you'll just have to tell me when we get there.
Random is fine.
Random is fine. We had a nice little look at the map. We have someone from India who may or may not still be here, from the Philippines,
I'm looking at the map. Yeah, that's nice.
Okay,
hey, Daniel?
so we'll do as much as we can do, and then we'll reschedule or find some other way to bring you on again.
Okay, so fine. So are you going to just put the slides up?
I'll follow your orders.
Okay, there's no way I can click on them though, right?
You can click on them if you'd like, or you can just tell me to do so. There's some arrows right above the pictures.
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so we should start now, right?
Let's go right ahead.
Okay. So my name is Jerry Mintz. I've got an old computer here. I think I've decided that we have to change it because it took us a long time to get this thing to work, but I'm glad to finally be on with you all. I'm the director of AERO, the Alternative Education Resource Organization, and should have probably had a better light in front of me, but I don't, so you can't see me very well. Maybe if I back up a little bit. Anyway, AERO basically networks educational alternatives all around the world. We have a free e-newsletter. If you go to our website, which is educationrevolution.org, you can sign up for the free e-newsletter. You can get lots of resources. We have hundreds of people in our member list that we're linked to. We have hundreds of organizations that are part of our Democratic Schools list. We have an online course for people who are trying to start new alternative schools. And that's going to start next month. I just came back from the International Democratic Education Conference in Boulder, Colorado, and we've been helping to organize that since 1993, when the first one started in Israel at Democratic School of Hadera. Yaakov Hecht organized that first one. And AERO has a conference every year. This year it was at Long Island University, right here on Long Island in New York, which is where I am. And it will probably be there again next July, or maybe late June. We're still working on the dates. Well, I'm just going to go talk to you about various things that have to do with alternative education. I think it's a major concept, though, that I want to talk to people about, and that is there are kind of two ways of looking at the way people learn, all people. There's two ways of looking at how children learn, two basic paradigms. One of them is the one that we seem to be operating on in most schools, and that is the kids are naturally lazy and need to be forced to learn. And the second one is if you believe that children are natural learners, people are natural learners. If you believe that, then you can't have a lot of the things that are just taken for granted in schools, such as homework, competition, grades, and so on. Working for grades, doing homework, this is based on you following what somebody else thinks that you should be doing. But we believe in learner-centered education. We believe that people are natural learners, children are natural learners, and the job of the teacher is to be able to listen and to help with the resources that the learners need to do the things, to learn the things that they want to learn. And the schools and programs that are in our network are the ones that seem to believe that approach. They are learner-centered organizations. Now, you see the slide there, and Steve, can they see me and the slide, or both, or what?
They're seeing you, the slide, and the chat.
Okay, good. And by the way, if people have questions as we go along, I would be happy to answer them. I just don't know where to look for them. But maybe you can let me know, Steve. So that's a picture of the Free School, which is an alternative school in Albany, New York, that's about 40 years old. And it was started by a woman by the name of Mary Leue, L-E-U-E. She's in her 90s now. And she started it for her children. And she did some amazing things in this community, which is in Albany, New York. But it is a learner-centered, democratic school. And one of the things that she did is that she and her community bought up a bunch of inner-city row houses for as little as $500. And they used the money that they rehabbed those buildings. They fixed them up, they rented them out, and the income that they get from it goes toward paying the tuition for their students so that they can have a cross-section of students. So that it's on a kind of a sliding scale. And that's one of the things that's really unique about the Free School in Albany. But every school has something that is unique about them, but that's one of the things that's special about them. I'll put on another slide. Let's see what we have. Okay. So now this is a slide from another school, and I told you that we help people start new schools, and we helped start Brooklyn Free School 10 years ago. Every year, as I said, there is an International Democratic Education Conference, and we hosted the last one that was in the United States before this year, 10 years ago in Albany, New York. And people went home from that conference to New York City, and they said, how come we don't have a democratic school in New York City? And so we started having meetings. We actually met in a charter school in Queens. And we split into two groups. One was trying to start a public alternative that would be democratic, and the other wanted to start an independent school that would be democratic. And the public school, had a number of meetings, and we made a very elegant proposal, which just sat on a bureaucrat's desk. And we kind of forced a couple of meetings, but it didn't become a school. It was just not fitting their mold in New York City for having new alternatives. But the other one became Brooklyn Free School. And one of the concepts of Brooklyn Free School is that it has a sliding scale tuition. And so probably half the kids in the school are minority. And I keep on hearing from people that minority kids don't do well or can't, or their parents aren't interested. Well, it's not true. Brooklyn Free School has been a lot, and they've done very, very well. So Brooklyn Free School has about 60 kids and runs democratically, and it's done well enough that we were actually able to buy a $1.7 million building, a 5-story brownstone, in Brooklyn for the school. And so this is an example of one of the new schools that we helped to start. We've started maybe 50 or 60 of them in the last a few years. And there are just amazing stories. I'll just tell you one story that's very interesting about the very beginnings of that school. We were having a discussion about what the age should be for the youngest student to come to the school. And so there were a few kids in the meeting, and we were sort of a demonstration of how we would do a democratic meeting. And one of the issues that came up of what the youngest age should be, and the particular issue we were discussing at that point was whether kids should be able to leave the school and go to a store, at what age they should, and so on. And so when they said, well, how old should the youngest one be? I said, well, there's a 4-year-old in the other room. Let's have him come to the meeting, see if he can understand what's going on. So we invited him to come in. We explained to him, how meetings work, how you raise your hand, and so on. If you have something to say, it's about something that's either a problem or a good idea, so on. Well, after a little while, when they were discussing what age someone should be, the 7-year-olds thought 7 was pretty good. The 10-year-olds thought maybe 8 was better or whatever, and then maybe 2 people should be going at once. And then the 4-year-old raises his hand and he says, there's buses out there, there's trucks, it's dangerous. I think 10-year-olds should be about the right age. And so then, I guess at that point, people realized that a 4-year-old could participate in the discussion. And I've got something else similar to tell you about later. Let's go to another slide. Okay, so this is a slide of some of the kids in Albany Preschool. And they have the very youngest kids there, all the way up through 8th grade graduation. And for a while, that was as far as they went. But then another school that started as a spin-off from Albany Preschool, which is Harriet Tubman, started, and that goes through high school. Let's do another one. Now, this is at a small school that was in New Jersey, and they asked me to come over to demonstrate democratic decision-making process. Now, I had just come from a very unusual situation. I'd been in India, and they wanted me to demonstrate democratic process for a school of 2,500 students. And I did 20 meetings that week of all different subgroups, and we eventually set up a sort of a representative system, but it was not a regular representative system. It was one in which each of the kids led meetings in their own home classroom, and then they took the vote to the big one. But here I was driving over to New Jersey, and I was going to demonstrate democratic process here with kids, the oldest of whom were 5 years old. And the thing that's interesting is, you see, I had a sort of traditional education, but as I was driving over, my education sort of got the best of me, and it happens even though I've demonstrated these things all over the world. And I thought, well, 5 years old, I'm going to probably have to at least give them the agenda, make it for them. I didn't know how we were going to be able to do this. And I get there, and the first thing that happens as we get there is there's a 2.5-year-old screaming, "Mommy!" And I'm thinking, oh boy, I don't know how we're going to do this. And then they're sitting around a big table, and I explained to the kids that were there that to have a meeting, you can bring up either something you think is a good idea for the school or a problem to discuss, and every hand immediately went up. So much for me having to make the agenda. And a 4-year-old said something to the effect of, well, that she'd heard that the chocolate had a substance in it that was sort of like caffeine, and that maybe kids shouldn't be eating it in the afternoon. And so that was discussed, and it was passed that chocolate should just be eaten in the morning. Another kid brought up that there were kids who were a little sick and had a cold, and maybe they shouldn't go outside when it was bad weather, and that was also passed, that if you had a cold, you shouldn't go out in the cold. And this, by the way, is the videotape of this whole session is actually available in the AERO archive of videos called Preschool Democracy. So let's see another one. Yeah. Now this was actually taken at an IDEC that we had in Australia. And the boy on the left is Australian. The boy on the right is from an orphanage in Nepal. And it's interesting, I had met him, I guess, the year before at an IDEC that we had in India. And about 15 of the people from this orphanage came down from Nepal to that conference. And he was one of them. His name is Rishi. Well, I'll tell you one little incredible thing that happened. Those kids had never seen the ocean before. And after that conference in India, the group of them went down to the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, because they're actually their orphanage is named after Sri Aurobindo, who was sort of like the John Dewey of India. And they went down to the beach every day, except for the very last day where they decided to go to the zoo, which saved their lives, because that's when the tsunami hit. killed 100 people on that beach. Just part of the story. But this boy came to the ashram, the orphanage ashram, when he was 3 years old. And now he's in college and doing really well. And I also taught him ping pong there and in Australia, and sent some money to them so they could have tables there. They take care of 160 kids now, and they have their form of democratic process there. So part of my point here is that this is a worldwide movement. It's not just something in the United States. It's happening everywhere. In our school starters, we have people from Saudi Arabia. I met somebody from Egypt and somebody from Israel who have been in our school starters course at the IDEC this year in Boulder. Let's see another picture. Okay, so this was taking place in India, and I've been to India 3 or 4 times. And I went at one point to a new school, again, of about 2,500, and I demonstrated to them the democratic process just in their little group. They were kind of representatives. Then when I came back the next year, it was not possible to go back up to the school, which was in Pune. But somehow or other, they managed to finagle their way to come down to see me, where I was speaking at that conference. And we had a big meeting in the lobby of the hotel to talk about how they could proceed on doing this democratic process. Whenever kids have heard about this as a possibility, they've been interested in it. They have been wanting to do it. It makes sense to them. In 10 seconds, when I talk to a kid almost anywhere, and we talk about education that's learner-centered, it makes perfect sense to them. It's just that very often the adults around them, they are not ready for it. They were trained in a different way, and they get to a certain point, and that natural ability to learn does tend to get extinguished. And the human being is a very flexible, amazing kind of creature. So maybe it takes 6 or 7 years before that natural ability to learn is extinguished, or at least suppressed a lot. And maybe by 7th or 8th grade, it's not going to ever come back the way it was. Let's see another picture.
Do you want to? That's it for the photos.
Do you have the video there?
I have the video you sent me plus the 2 links. Which would you like to show?
The video that I sent you, because that one isn't available anywhere. This is just a little idea of what it is like. Well, this is basically alternative education around the world. And it gives you just a very quick view of all these different schools and programs everywhere. It's not on YouTube or anything. It's just something that we just had here that I use for the school starters course. But if you can get it up there, we'll see if we can see it. It includes the videos of Summerhill. I assume that people have heard of Summerhill, a school in England. But I've been there about 15 times. I'm the very, very part-time table tennis teacher. I actually teach table tennis here locally at a Boys and Girls Club, and taught several kids who have become New York State champion. And in fact, the U.S. Olympic Committee gave me an award a couple of years ago as volunteer coach of the year. Are you able to get it up there, Steve?
Sure. It's going to take about 2 minutes to get loaded. Would you like to say anything else, or show another video first?
No. Let's just wait for that one, and we can do that one. It's okay. Just let me know when you think it's ready. So again, when we show you this video, you'll see scenes of Summerhill. Now, I'm sure most people have heard of Summerhill. Summerhill was started by A.S. Neal in the 20s. There's a new book out, by the way, called After Summerhill, about graduates of Summerhill, and I think we still have copies of it here. We have, we have a bookstore that people can buy books from us. We actually sold about $4,000 worth of books out at the IDEC in Boulder, basically because a lot of the books that we have, just you can't get them anywhere else. We're the only ones that publish them. But Summerhill is now run by Asniel's daughter, and you may wonder, well, let's see, if he started that in the 20s, how could his daughter still be running it? Well, very easy. He had her when he was in his 60s. And so, and then her children probably will take over the school. The interesting thing is it's a proprietary school. It's actually owned by the Neal family. I think a lot of people may not realize that the Summerhill is actually owned by the Neal family. By the way, is there a way, Steve, are we going to be able to get questions from people if they have them?
Sure, and this may not be a bad time to have one or two get asked while we're waiting for the video.
Okay, how could we do that? How do we do that?
So if you have a question for Jerry, you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand. That's the hand icon. The third one over in the participant window will give you the microphone.
Okay. Am I going to be able to see this in the chat session?
You will, and I'll read it out if someone has a question for you. So if you have a question for Jerry, you can go in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand. We're at 70% on the video, so we're almost there. Lynn had a question just a bit back in the chat, so let me find that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just barely able to do all this. It's the first time I've done one like this, but I hope I actually would love it if you would email me afterwards, and I'd be very happy to answer any questions that people have by email. My email address is Jerry, as in Jerry, AERO, as in Alternative Education Resource Organization. You can't see that really very, very well, but AERO, Jerry, AERO at AOL.com. So it's Jerry Arrow at AOL.com.
Okay, so we have this question from Lynn. What developmental, she says, teachers' running curves are every bit as steep as the children's. What developmental process do schools live that develops the will, being, and function of the teachers?
You know, I used to think that we were really lucky at my school to have somehow magically found amazingly good teachers. But eventually I realized that it was the process of the school itself that was helping them become good teachers. And there were various reasons for that. One is that we had 2 really long staff meetings every week in which people could bring up whatever they wanted, whether they were interpersonal things or whatever. Another thing that was interesting, by the way, is students, if they wanted to, were generally allowed to come to the staff meetings because we would find that they would be able to give us a lot of information that only they knew. And it was very helpful to the teachers. But one of the most important things for training teachers I found was the fact that students did not have to go to any classes. They went to the classes they were interested in. Now, at our school, teachers were perfectly welcome to offer classes. There are some schools, as you may know, that don't want to have classes unless students ask for them. But in our case, the teachers could offer classes, the students could offer classes, but nobody had to go to them. So therefore, if a teacher, a new teacher, say, offered a class and nobody went to them, they would have to be thinking about how to sell this, how to become more creative about it, and how to become a better teacher, basically, to make it more interesting. And so over a period of time, our teachers actually became really, really good. And that was one of the most important factors. So the combination of the staff meetings, the feedback from students, and the fact that the students could give feedback by not coming to classes or by coming to classes. Those were some of the things that happened that I think that helped our teachers become really good.
So Jerry, I can play this video. It looks as though it's completely uploaded. It looks as though it's ready on most people's computers. I'm going to click play and see how this does. And let's see if you're able to see it. It says that some of you may not have fully received this. So it should start for you once you do receive it, but a good portion of you have all gotten it.
I might be one of the last with my slow computer.
And for me, at least, I have to click play.
So that's the school in Pune that I told you about. Those are some of the kids from there. That's it. So that's just a quick idea of
Jerry?
A quick idea of different kinds of alternative schools around the world, public, private, and so on.
Hey, Jerry?
And yeah.
Is that video not on the web because it's proprietary? Because I have the ability to send it to everybody. Can I send it to everybody who's here?
No, it's just that we originally made it for the online courses, so we just never put it up there, but we could.
Well, I can just send it to people now. Okay, so we've got about 5 more minutes before the next set of sessions start. If you have a question for Jerry, please feel free to ask it. I'm going to send this video to everybody who's in the room, and you should have access to it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, sure. If any last questions? And again, you can just email me at jerryarrow@aol.com if you have specific questions about the AERO conference, about the online course, about how you become a member, any of these things. If you become a member, you get discounts in our bookstore. You actually get to be on our AERO listserv, which is our discussion list and so on. And our website is educationrevolution.org, and it has tons of free stuff on it, including the links to all of our member schools, to democratic schools, and it has the video, excerpts from the video by Sir Kenneth Robinson, who was a keynote speaker a year ago at the AERO conference that we had in Portland, Oregon. And of course, next year's conference will be back in, most likely, we haven't finalized it, but most likely it'll be back here where we had it this year at Long Island University, and most likely at the end of June, but maybe the beginning of July, we'll see.
So I went to AERO this year for the first time and loved it. I felt like it was just a great sort of gathering of a variety of different viewpoints and really appreciated the conference. and would recommend this conference highly to anybody who wants to go. Jerry, Lynn says, most of us agree that free democratic schools are great. If we were standing in a perfect free democratic school, what would we do to improve?
If we were standing in a democratic school, what would we do to improve?
That's the question. Maybe if you were to pick a school right now that you feel does a really good job, are there things you think they could do even more?
Well, of course, there's always things that you can do to improve. I mean, is there anything in general that I think? I think that the key to all this is that it is based on the interest that people have. So therefore, everybody can take the responsibility for things getting better and improving. And I think that that's actually a key to it, and why a lot of the schools that we have seem to evolve to becoming better and better, because they're not dependent upon an administrator to come up with new ideas. So I think that some aspects of that question make me think that it wants me to do some kind of a top-down thing, which I'm not inclined to want to do. I think, if anything, we just encourage everybody to come up with the best ideas they can to make the school better.
Jerry, I know you struggled to get on tonight. We do have to finish on time because we have 3 other sessions starting. We'll bring you back on again many times, somehow, somewhere. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Okay. I'm glad I finally made it on, and I was a little afraid that something like this might happen. Of course, this computer's pretty old, and I think we have to replace it with a newer one that we have. But it's been interesting, and I'm looking forward to hearing from people and getting feedback from people about how they like this.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, everybody. We're going to turn the recording off. We do have some great sessions coming up. We have 2 more hours, and then we start again tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.